I'm Meg Drake with K-State Research and Extension, and today we're joined by K-State Research and Extension beef cattle specialist Dale Blasi to talk a little bit how we can stretch forage supplies within the beef cattle herd throughout the winter. Dale, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here, Meg.
To kick things off, let's just start with kind of a brief overview of what we're going to be discussing today.
Well, Meg, considering that many producers in the south central and certainly in the western part of our state have encountered with subpar growing conditions this previous summer, it becomes incumbent on many of our producers to utilize their existing forages as efficiently as possible to stretch their existing forage resources, especially with their beef cow requirements beginning to elevate as calving season comes closer.
So really, to do this, it's important to understand and know what forage you have on supply and on hand.
Exactly, and goes along with that, Meg, is that it's very important that producers fully account for their existing forage base. Do a forage inventory, calculate the number of bales, and if they could, ideally partition those bales by quality and utilize them based upon their beef cow herd's requirements, their needs.
And this is where a forage analysis test can come in handy.
Exactly. Collecting a representative forage test would allow a producer to utilize his or her feed supply in a manner most efficiently. In other words, the better quality feed can be utilized with the younger and certainly the thinner body condition cows, and the other quality material can be used perhaps with the bulls, and so forth. So it's important to utilize and know the quality of the feed that you have on hand.
What about nitrate levels in forages? Does that also need to be tested for as well?
You know, given the situation that occurred with the challenges of the growing conditions, especially with respect to cane feed, that being a forage sorghum or something along those lines, a pearl millet, I would recommend that producers do conduct a nutrient analysis, but also incorporate into that a nitrate toxicity to know the levels that they're encountering so that they are prepared to utilize that feed and are aware of the potential conditions that can happen with a potential nitrate toxicity situation.
So when we talk about stretching forages throughout the winter, it's really important to analyze waste as well and how we can really diminish the amount wasted. That's
right. I conducted some work several years ago in Medicine Lodge, and we determined by simply unrolling feed bales, be it wheat hay and certainly the cane feed, we saw wastage estimates as high as 20%. So we're leaving 1/5 of the bale for waste. That's not to say that it could come back and be utilized as a place for the babies to lay down and so forth, but it's not going into the cow. And so there's issues with that. Other work with respect to hay rings out of Oklahoma State have shown comparable levels of waste depending upon the bale ring that is used. And there is a really good calculator for estimating bale wastage, and it was conducted by the Noble Foundation, and it can be found at www.noble.org/tools. So producers need to account the feed that is in their forage lots, and they need to collect a representative sample when they do submit it for an analysis, and that's very important to collect a representative sample.
So based upon your research or any research you've encountered, which particular way of feeding is the most efficient in terms of really eliminating waste?
Well, knowing the quality of the feed that you have and allocating the amount as close as possible to the animal. There's been a lot of research conducted looking at providing, in a limited fashion, providing forage to cows in an effort to reduce the wastage. Instead of having 24 access, they would have, say, a 3 or 6 or a 9-hour access. Utilizing a hot wire and providing the string, the forage adjacent to the hot wire so the animals only have access to a limited amount might be one means to minimize trampling, but utilizing the better quality stuff and providing it in a fashion such that it's not overly provided to the animals for trampling and so forth to occur is certainly one way to do it.
So yet again, that quality analysis comes into play with this as well.
And exactly, and conducting a quality analysis, I'd be remiss if I didn't emphasize the importance of collecting a representative sample, and that is roughly equal to about 10% of a forage lot, and a forage lot being defined as the number of bales that come off of a field and harvested and stored in a similar manner. So basically full sib bales in a forage field being sampled from that.
Now let's talk a little bit about supplementation. As well as just feeding some of our forage supplies, we should also look into supplementing the cows.
Well, supplementation comes into play, and in many cases, if not all, we're looking at a deficiency in crude protein. Crude protein does a lot. It stimulates the rumen. The animal is able to do a much better job through the aid and benefit of the ruminal microbes of digesting the forage that is consumed, so that the animal is basically able to generate as much of the energy as possible as she can by the supplementation of the protein. So taking a hard look at the different protein sources that are out there, I suspect many of our producers have already made their purchases, whether they're using the higher quality brome hay or if it may be some alfalfa that they were able to put up. One thing with the dynamic alfalfa market is a lot of the better quality alfalfa has left our state and has headed south into Oklahoma and certainly into Texas. Other byproducts such as distillers grains, certainly a great opportunity now for many producers is high protein soybean meal, and there's some opportunities out there, but to know the quality of the feed, to know the nutrient requirements of your beef cow, and to supplement accordingly, and to do it in a minimal fashion so as not to over supplement and overfeed.
Now, when we spoke previously, you had mentioned Rumensin. What are some of the benefits towards supplementing Rumensin specifically? Well,
Rumensin has been around. It's a standby in the feed yard industry and certainly in many of our receiving and backgrounding operations. Rumensin is an ionophore, and basically what Rumensin does is that bottom line, it improves the efficiency of feed utilization. It improves feed efficiency by removing out those bacteria that are not productive and produce methane, and it channels the energy produced from the digestion of the forage into propionate, which it benefits the animal. Long story short, Rumensin, provided anywhere from 50 to 200 milligrams per head per day, will reduce feed or forage requirements by approximately 5 to 10%. So again, calculating the needs of your cow herd, putting in snow days and so forth to meet the needs during inclement weather, you can basically, with the use of this product, you can reduce the feed needs of your cows by 10%. Some cautionary notes goes along with the use of Rumensin. It is cleared by the FDA for use with cows. Bovatec is not. So it is not lawful to utilize Bovatec in a feeding cow situation. Yeah, with respect to Rumensin, one cautionary note I will make as well, and that is the importance that producers are aware that Rumensin as a compound is very, very toxic to horses. So it becomes very important that the manager, the manager's family, and the co-workers that works for the operation are aware that a mineral supplement containing Rumensin must and should be kept separate, and they should be aware of keeping it away from horses. That is very, very important.
Now, K-State has actually specific software out for rationing.
Yes, we do. It's called BRANDS, and it stands for Beef Ration and Analysis Decision Software. And in short, it is located in many of the county and extension offices across our state, and our county and district agents are well fitted to assist the producer and input the analysis results that they collect, that the producer receives back from conducting an analysis. They're able to customize the size of the cows, the date of calving, and everything into their software, and it gives a producer a good idea on what their present management conditions are in terms of what they're feeding, and it's a great means by which to evaluate what is presently being done on an operation.
Now, lastly, let's talk a little bit about how weather and environmental conditions have impacted forage supplies.
Well, you know, it remains to be seen. We've seen our first hints of winter, and certainly in the western part of the state there is standing snow. And anytime we have inclement weather, that challenges it. And unfortunately, we're going to need a lot more of that inclement weather to bring our soil moisture profiles back into play for next year's growing season. So with respect to your question on how forage is utilized, it becomes incumbent that we do have to utilize our harvested feed. As much as our feed is damaged and snowed upon, we need to do everything we can to ensure that we're meeting the nutrient requirements of our breeding cow herd. So minimizing and ensuring we're meeting their needs and accounting for wastage, we'll never get that number down to zero. There's going to be a certain fraction of feed that is not consumed, and it's a function of the quality of the feed. The better the quality and utilized expeditiously, I believe we could minimize waste. But when we're using lower quality feed and stuff, they're going to sort and sift through that feed and pick, if you will, the better parts and waste the other.